I was asked a question the other day, and the question was, how can I keep a positive attitude given what's happening in the world? How do I keep a positive attitude about my health and well-being? How do I keep a positive attitude given the war in Ukraine, given the fear that is pretty much rampant on the planet? How do I keep a positive attitude in the face of all the media that I'm watching that seems to be really focused on reminding me of all the things that I should be afraid of, could be afraid of, and consequently become afraid of? And I thought that's just really maybe the best question to be in an inquiry in right now. The default answer from my perspective and my work is you really want to look at your mindset. You want to look at your thinking. You want to look at what you're paying attention to in terms of your thinking. And another really popular and useful question that a lot of people are engaged in, that I have spent a lot of time teaching people about, is what is your purpose? What is your higher purpose in terms of what do you want to be creating and contributing to the world? And how valuable is it at this point in time, since I'm this one person and there's so much momentum being gathered with the negativity and the seeming necessity to protect oneself or to protect other vulnerable people, animals, nature, planet. And all of that intentionality inside of a purpose for your life that you want to accomplish is very valuable. And yet, if that's the only motivation is to accomplish this, you will engage in the doingness of what it takes to accomplish this. But then, what about your own fulfillment? What about your own peace of mind? In accomplishing things, we often can step back and really be proud of what we have accomplished. But does it really help us to feel fulfilled? There's an outer purpose. There's a purpose of accomplishment in the world. But if you're wanting to be fulfilled, whether or not that accomplishment reaches the result that you wanted or not, there has to also be an inner purpose. So there's an inner purpose and an outer purpose. There's an inward outlook and there's an outward outlook. The inner purpose is the same purpose for every human being on the planet. And the inner purpose is to be aligning with that quiet mind, the space of consciousness that has no attention to thinking. Mostly we spend a lot of time paying attention to the thinking that's going on in our heads. this conversation has actually gathered momentum. It's a conversation that's out there in the world, which is really great, because 10 years ago this conversation wasn't that popular. But it's really indicative, I think, of how much we are aligning with an inner purpose. The inner purpose is remembering who we are without the attachment to the identity, without the attachment to the outer accomplishments, without the attachment to my story, my history, my the life issues in this life that I'm dealing with. Nobody gets off the hook of issues to deal with. I mean, it just, if you are fortunate enough to develop a capacity for serenity in the face of life's challenges, then you really have that. Now that, I would say, is an accomplishment. So you want to develop that capacity of being able to distinguish, who am I as a human being versus who am I as an eternal being? And the way to connect with that eternal being is really practicing listening beneath the incessant thinking that's going on in our heads. As human beings, we're designed to be thinking all the time. And most of us don't really realize that the thinking that's going on all the time is like a ticker tape. It's an automatic, it's like endless replays of what you've already seen and already done and already learned and already know. And it's useful. That ticker tape is useful if you need to grab data from the ticker tape to use for something specific right now. But to find peace of mind in the midst of what's happening in the world, to keep a positive attitude, if you will, given what's happening in the world, you have to be standing on a foundation that isn't contingent on anything that's happening in the world. And that's the foundation of the silence. That's the foundation of that quiet mind. That's the foundation that is available to every one of us if we turn our attention away from the thinking that is available in technology, that's available on television, that's available in many of our conversations, which are full of gossip and drama, and actually just quietly being present. A great example is to be present in nature and be with a tree or a plant or a bird, with no attention to any thinking about that tree, about that plant, about that bird. Like, forget what you know. Get amnesia about how much you know. And listen from the quietness of not knowing. Listen to discover a connection to that tree, a connection to that plant, a connection to that bird. I mean, what if you were to stop? Like, I have a couple of bouquets of flowers I got from Mother's Day. And I'll actually, make my coffee in the morning, and then I'll just stop and I'll look at the flowers and allow myself to be blown away by the extraordinary color on the flowers, and then maybe to consider, where did that color come from? What are the components in that flower that has one flower show up as this deep, brilliant russet orange, and the flower next to it to be this sort of soft, uh, 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 cloud-like pink that fades into a deeper purple. Like that, like the miracle of that, to be present to the wonder of that. To be in an inquiry of listening for the silence and listening for the presence and turning your attention away from thinking and turning your attention to being present with whatever's in front of you, or intentionally being present with something in your environment that you appreciate, that you find beautiful, or that you love. It could be a thing, it could be a pet. I mean, sitting and spending time looking into Bodhi's eyes, our little Tibetan terrier, is just, he's just completely present. He's just there looking at me. And, if you wonder what has this little dog be able to maintain his joyous state in the face of living with two really grumpy um, uh, 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 people wrestling with the drama of life, and he is just present, and so maintains a connection to the eternal, which is joy and which is love and which is enthusiasm. That's available to all of us. Now, it doesn't mean that you don't get stunned by what's happening in the world and you don't take seriously the needs of our planet to be loved and to be taken care of and to address certain issues like the pandemic and like climate change and the atrocities that human beings commit on each other. The level of unconsciousness that has people behaving the way we behave as a race, as a species. However, to be able to be with those challenges and atrocities, those traumas, inside of a space of the eternal, lets you be present to how much you're not committed to life going that way, but also gives you access, since you're connected to the eternal, to the infinite intelligence and wisdom that can give you some true thought, new thought, inspired thought, insight about what action maybe you would take. Maybe that action is something on a global scale. Maybe you will join an organization that's committed to climate restoration. Maybe you will cut a check and send it to World Health Organization. Maybe there's some doing that you will do that will make a difference to what's happening in the world. And maybe it won't be so global, obviously so global. Maybe you'll commit to not engaging in altercation with your spouse. Maybe you'll commit to listening to your teenager to understand how they see life rather than constantly trying to tell them how they need to be behaving or what's not working for you about their behavior. Maybe you'll listen for compassion and listen for wonder. And in doing that from the space of the eternal, while you're still being present to the issue that needs to be addressed, you actually will be adding to the portal to the eternal that's available in the consciousness of humanity around the world. You will be adding to the elevation of consciousness and the evolution of consciousness by seeing how much it takes for you to deal with your own reactivity. And as you can do that, as you cannot be defensive, as you cannot be righteous, as you cannot be offended, you create an opening of that non-reactivity as a possibility for any other human being who faces that same situation. That's our inner purpose. Our inner purpose is to align with the eternal. Our inner purpose is to align with the oneness that is equally everywhere present and that is available to every human being, and which is actually the truth of who we are. Like these bodies and these names and identities are limited in terms of time. We have a beginning, a middle, and an end. But the eternal is outside of time. So the inner purpose is outside of time. The inner purpose is always available, never changing, ever flowing, eternally available. And we are little thoughts in the eternal, little creative sparks of the eternal that come and go for, a few years, a few decades. Maybe some of us live to be 30, some of us live to be 60, some of us live to be 90, some of us live to be 110. It's not that much of a difference in the span of eternity. It's not that much of a difference in the span of eternity. So to get present to the outward purpose, like what is this short-term person with a long-term commitment, a long-term vision, want to be creating in the time that I have on this planet? And am I standing in my eternal self, which is connected to the everything and the no-thing and the absolute and infinite intelligence and wisdom and omnipotent love? Can I create in this lifetime and as this personality and keep my connection to the eternal, to be in this world, but not of it? And that is the climate change that I think is the most important one that we're up against, is the climate of our own consciousness, our own psyche. So I hope that's helpful in terms of maintaining a positive attitude in the midst of the effluvium of human experience and human challenge. That's what we're doing here. We are here to see how to deal with challenges from more and more peaceful states of consciousness. And that's how we evolve. I mean, the whole point of being born and living a few years and then dying is to go back and reflect and come back and be born and live a few years and die, and then, go back and reflect and then be reborn and then live a few years and then die, and then review and review. It's all about the evolution of human consciousness, which is actually connected to the evolution of consciousness itself. So the way you handle yourself in any personal situation actually impacts the way any other human being can handle themselves in that same situation. So even though nobody else but me maybe will tell you that, do not underestimate your purpose in daily life coming from your eternal inner purpose of aligning with the silence and aligning with presence and aligning with this moment of now, which is the timeless moment of now. See you next time.